Hi, everyone. It is Lindsay Baker with the Action Hour, and today I'm bringing you a story. DXE launches a series of protests at the Timberwolves games to raise awareness about the use of ventilation shutdown. And today I have with me my honored guest is Crystal Heath, who is a veterinarian, and she is with OurHonor.org. She's the co-founder of the organization. We're going to hear all about it. But first, we want to jump right into the story. Thank you so much, Crystal, for being here. I really think our audience is going to get a great insight from you into this whole issue. Let's just jump in with them and show them what DXE had planned to disrupt these games and why they did this. Let's just run one of the protests that we have here.
The woman who caused a disturbance at a Grizzlies basketball game over the weekend is now out of jail and appeared in court this morning. During the Grizzlies' first game of the playoffs, 19-year-old Zoe Rosenberg threw political flyers over the basketball court and chained herself to a basketball goal. The protest interrupted the game momentarily. Action News 5's Talia Fagart was in court, and she actually spoke with Rosenberg. She joins us live with what happened. Talia.
Hi, good morning, Ariana. Rosenberg tells me that she is headed back home to California. She's facing 2 charges, one for criminal trespassing and another for orderly misconduct. She says that this was all about animal rights activism. She's part of a grassroots animal rights group and was protesting Glenn Taylor, the former owner of the Timberwolves. Rosenberg claims he owns a factory egg farm that roasted 5.3 million chickens alive, which was the reasoning behind her protest. Reports show the chickens were killed after avian flu spread throughout the facility. I asked Rosenberg what her message was for the Memphis community regarding her protest during the playoff game, and this is what she had to say.
Yeah, nothing but respect to the Memphis community. I'm sorry that, folks felt like the game was interrupted and if anyone felt like it was disrespectful. I just wanted to raise awareness about this really big issue and demand justice for the 5.3 million chickens who died in excruciating pain.
She is set to be back in court on May 16th, and this isn't her first time getting arrested. She says that she views these repercussions as a small sacrifice to get these issues heard. Now, as far as how she got on court, she said that she just walked in. It was as simple as just walking on the court. But there are still questions about how she got those metal chains into the facility. She says that she went through a metal detector, and she says that the chains were metal, so it's still unclear how she got those items inside for her demonstration. Reporting live, Talia Fagart, Action News.
So, Crystal, I know that people were wearing T-shirts. I think I have an example of it here. And the T-shirt, oh, that's Matt. That's not the right one. Sorry about that. Here it is. And the T-shirt says the owner of the Timberwolves roast animals alive. Now, for most of our audience, they don't know what ventilation shutdown is. And I would like you to, if you would please give a kind of brief synopsis, and then folks, we're going to show some footage, which is very graphic, and I'm going to give you a warning beforehand, and we're only going to show a few seconds. And then, again, Crystal, I would like you to go into more detail at that point if you could. So go ahead and just explain to people what it is. Go ahead.
Yeah, so because of avian influenza outbreaks throughout the United States, more than 20 million birds have been killed, and they have to depopulate these large facilities like Rembrandt farms owned by Glenn Taylor there. He had 5.5 million birds or 5.3 million birds that had to be killed because just a few tested positive for avian influenza. So they did this by sealing up the barns, pumping in heat and steam, and waiting for the birds to die. And this took many hours. And he had to do this 7 years ago when this happened before, when they killed 5.5 million birds. They knew this would happen again because their farm is right in the path of the Mississippi Flyway. The taxpayers gave them $11.3 million. And this is a billionaire who owns this giant chicken farm. And it's at risk for future avian flu outbreaks as well. And this is a
and
horrifying...
I just have to jump in and invite him on at any time, or his representatives, to tell their side of the story. We really want to stay more on the issues of ventilation shutdown and not necessarily get involved with certain individuals in the animal agriculture field, because every story is different and we don't have investigators to corroborate the stories. So if we could just stay to ventilation shutdown and what has been going on with DXE, and I think we'll be safe. So go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no problem. So the Direct Action Everywhere investigators went onto this facility after the depopulation had occurred and found many of the birds were still alive, walking around, posing an ongoing public health threat. And it just goes to show you just how brutal the industry is. There's no kind way to kill this many animals. There's no humane way. They do follow the Avian guidelines on depopulation, but the method they used was a method that was to be used in constrained circumstances only. And it was not a constrained circumstance. This was very predictable. 7 years ago, when they got $11.3 million, they could have put a plan in place to kill their birds via a less cruel method, certainly not a humane.
And I assume this applies to all the different poultry producers, not just this one. Let's take a look at some footage, and we're going to show this very briefly. This is very graphic, everyone. And I believe this, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a test to see, this isn't the actual what happened there, because it happened in mass, but this is just how they test to see the effect on the chicken. I believe it's very gruesome, folks. I'm warning you. And I'm just looking for this right now. Okay, so only a few seconds here, folks.
Yeah.
There's an avian influenza outbreak that's sweeping the country. Millions and millions of birds are being killed through mass depopulation methods. Over the course of approximately a year and a half and multiple public records requests, Animal Outlook, a national nonprofit animal protection organization, was able to obtain approximately 10 hours worth of videos regarding experiments conducted killing chickens.
Okay, it's clear that that animal is suffering. Can you just, without getting too graphic so we don't get kicked off Facebook, just explain to us exactly, a little bit about that whole process, if you would?
Yeah, those were experiments that were done at North Carolina State University, and that footage was obtained via public records request. And they were doing various studies on how to kill birds, putting them in these boxes, infusing the boxes with heat or CO2, and seeing how long it would take to kill the birds and watching as they die. Like, this is a horrifying experiment, and one that is completely not necessary. And there are sadly, students are doing these sorts of experiments in veterinary schools throughout the country right now.
Wow.
After the swine depopulation events, there were student posters and research on how to kill pigs or exhaust. I have those papers. How to use a water-based foam and nitrogen-based foam and things like that. And these are just awful problems that our future young, enthusiastic veterinarians should not be faced with having to solve. The problem they should be solving is ending animal agriculture and moving away from this violent system where we have to commit mass atrocities onto innocent animals.
Let me jump in and ask you a question, since you brought up the students, and you were, of course, a veterinary student.
Yeah.
How was your experience being, and when did you become vegan or become aware that you had compassion and, for animals and so forth? How did that all unwrap for you?
I grew up in an ag background in a rural area in Northern California. I was involved in 4-H. All my neighbors raised pigs and sheep and cattle. So I grew up in that industry. I was tried out to be rodeo queen, and I was vice president of my 4-H club. So it was a a slow process, but I think at the age of like 10, I started questioning, like, I loved my animals and they are my closest friends. And, I first started like, hey, learned about this being vegetarian from like PETA, and I saw like a PETA flyer, and I'm like, that seems like a good way to go. And my parents were very resistant to it and got upset at me for like asking for a vegetarian meal at a birthday party.
Wow.
And then when I moved out, I met some more people who were involved in PETA, and I house sat for them, and I saw what food they ate, and it kind of like I started to change my habits. But it really wasn't until just a few years ago that I was really able to completely be like, it's pointless to eat. It's cruel. It's horrifying to eat animals and animal products. So I'm not going to do it anymore. When you're not surrounded by a community of people who are vegan, it's like, what's the point? I'm going to like give up a pleasure. I'm not going to make a difference, just me as one person. But then, when nobody else around you is eating meat, it makes it so much easier, and you have access to all of this food that's delicious and doesn't involve cruelty. I mean, if everybody had what I have living here in Berkeley, I think everybody would be vegan, because it makes it so easy.
It does make it easy, but it is easy. There are a lot of websites out there. How do I go vegan? Veg News has a lot of recipes on there. There's so many different sites out there where people can learn how to become vegan. But that, of course, has just evolved recently. Let's go back to the story, DXE's story here. And we can see here that it was in ESPN News as well as other media outlets, and they're talking about these protests. Now, I want to just give a big kudos to all of the activists for their bravery. I mean, my husband is a sports fan, and I happen to know if you disrupt a game, these people can get violent. And imagine, I mean, just some of the footage. And I did want to let's show some of that footage. Then we're going to get into, how DXE came about with the lawsuit, et cetera, that they're trying to, or I guess they're trying to demand that the owner of the Timberwolves sell the team. What are their demands? Maybe just clarify that.
No, I think they want him to relinquish ownership faster. I mean, there's already like, he's already planning to give up the team, but also donate the $11.3 million he got in taxpayer subsidies for avian flu to public health and animal sanctuaries and charities. That, I mean, he got our money to maintain his wealth while committing atrocities.
And this, again, it's not just him. All animal agriculture is constantly being bailed out by the government. So they really don't lose anything, right? If the animals die, they win. I think it was back a couple years ago when there was some terrible flooding happening. I think it was South Carolina, a state where there was a lot of cattle ranching and pig farming. And they actually documented, you can read it in the newspaper, locked them in, because they wanted to keep track of the inventory. So it's very clear that these animals are thought of as objects, like a mere tissue you can throw away or something, really insignificant.
It's horrifying. It's a horrifying industry. I don't know what to say. The idea that we as veterinarians are perpetuating this by legitimizing it in these depopulation guidelines, and the AVMA is not taking a stand and reclassifying ventilation shutdown as a not recommended form of depopulation just goes to show how the industry has influenced all of our structures that are put in place to help protect us all. Our regulatory bodies are influenced by industry and back and forth. And it's really an unfortunate system that's been set up to just perpetuate the wealth of the wealthy and the power of the wealthy.
Yes. And we want to just share a website. You're part of an organization that you co-founded. And I do want to show the website here, make sure it's coming up. And this is, because people want to know, this show is all about what can we do, what action can we take? And we're going to get to people's comments in a minute. But this is one of the places they can come, as well as DXE, to take action. I'll let you walk us through here, but Go ahead.
So Our Honor is a support group for veterinarians and all animal professionals who want to challenge our educational institutions, government, and corporations to work for the best interests of others, no matter their species. And we support people, like we have a list of people on the front page there who have challenged unethical systems and changed systems to protect animals.
Is that further? Oh, there we go. Yeah, let's show some of those folks. Yeah,
we have.
Go ahead.
Britton Hammett McCurry, she fought back against the University of Georgia's use of terminal surgeries in student education and created a more ethical model that doesn't rely on killing innocent animals for surgical training. Kirsten Rosenberg, who is the veterinarian of Happy Hen Animal Sanctuary. She also fought back against terminal surgeries at UC Davis. And I went to school at UC Davis, and I have her to thank for never having to kill my patient that I learned surgery on. We have an access to care model now where we learn surgery on patients who need it under the guidance of experienced surgeons without having to needlessly end the life of another living being. So yeah, we have all of these stories on here. Of course, I faced backlash and retaliation from the industry for speaking out against animal agriculture industry practices. I merely started to ask questions about the way things were done. People told me like, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. You should shadow a livestock veterinarian. And I'm like, I was an animal science major at UC Davis. I grew up in animal ag, but sure, there are things I don't know. I'd be happy to shadow a livestock veterinarian. I posted on a Facebook group asking to shadow a livestock veterinarian. And then all of a sudden I was attacked saying I was going to secretly record people because they saw on my public Facebook page that I had shared content from Direct Action Everywhere. So I must therefore be a terrorist because I'm associated with this organization who the industry has smeared as a terrorist organization.
Yes, we know all about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so and it just goes to show like how much adversity veterinarians face when they try to fight back against this giant industry. And it is the most abusive and destructive industry on the planet and powerful industry. And we face a great deal of backlash trying to challenge them.
Yes, absolutely. And I just wanted to give a shout out to my dear friend, Peggy Larson, who comes on the show as an expert witness many times. And she's wonderful, actually. Do you know Peggy?
Oh, yeah. She's been wonderful. She's been emailing me about the avian flu outbreaks and sending me articles and stuff. And yeah, she's absolutely wonderful activist for the animals.
I'd love to have a few of you vets on. Kirsten, Peggy, and you, and talk about your organization further and really focus on that. We are getting to the point where we want to kind of start to wrap things up, but I do want to show a couple of the scenarios and talk about the violence involved in these, how these people were treated. Let's just watch a few video clips. So we'll start with,
took that to the next level when she actually glued herself to the court in protest of animal rights. Alicia Santoria. Thanks for being here, Alicia.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Or is it actually hard to get you off once the glue? And would you, if you had to do it again, would you go Elmer's? Would you go, is there a certain kind of glue you wish you would have used?
Yeah, how much thought went into this?
So I think if I would do it again, I don't know if I put too much glue. Some of my hand was a little raw. I also don't know if maybe just the surface of the court, maybe isn't the best to stick to. Because it was dry and it was sticking, and that policewoman, she didn't care. She just ripped my hand right off the court.
Did you buy a ticket to the game?
Oh.
And where was it? How far down did you have to come?
Martin wants your seat.
I just want to know how many layers of security did you have to maneuver through before you got to right there on the court?
Yeah, that's a good question. I did buy a ticket. I was in row J. It wasn't that far. It was actually pretty good seats, but there was a bunch of security around and police officers. But I was just watching which way they were looking, when they were walking you know,
Studying the routine.
they never walk away. Yeah, and then I just walked by them. And
so that's one. I'm going to go back. I have a couple more questions for you, but let's show a couple more of the videos. So this is another activist.
Beverly Flossy. Towns wrestles through. Jackson went down. Towns can't go in. Loose ball. Beverly trying to save it. And we have a fan who went out on the floor. Keeps it alive. Edwards finds the cutter. Beverly floats it. Towns wrestles.
And I think it's really interesting how the crowd starts to turn against the activists, but it looked like they were expecting them. Is that right where, was that the box seats for the owner right there?
It wasn't, that area wasn't for the owner. I mean, those activists did pay for those seats and, you know, got seats right behind the owner. So
right, that's what I'm saying. Those people were blocking. They knew it was coming. So apparently she, it looked like in that case, she didn't have an easy time getting on.
No, that, I mean, the security guard, I don't know, there's another video of the security guard pretty much staring her down the whole time. And I talked to her after and she said, like, you know, she knew the security guard was staring at her, but she had to do something. So, you know, and it got a lot of press. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? Like, our movement loses legitimacy in the eyes of many, but also nobody is talking about it until activists do things like that. And now we have all of these in-depth news stories and brilliant coverage. I, you know, gotten to be on podcasts I'd never be on unless they did this. You know, people are wanting to know, what is this ventilation shutdown? What is this about? And they're starting to ask questions and conversations are being had. And it's based on history.
I'm so sorry.
Just like the women's suffrage movement, this is how they got press, by doing these outrageous stunts and getting people talking. And that's how you make change. And unfortunately, like, you lose a little ground sometimes with some people, but in the end, ultimately getting people talking about it, people realize this is horrifying and it's something needs to be done. So.
Right. And so it does seem to be getting a lot of press and the stories keep coming out. And, you know, I think it's really important that we ask everyone to share out this video. If you're watching and you think this is atrocious, please share the video out. It's going to help a lot. It gets a lot more people educated, for one thing, but also we want to talk about the alternative method. Now, you did talk to me a little bit about that off camera, and I would love to hear you to go into that a little bit for the audience. So there are alternatives. Of course, the animals are going to die, but it's not as inhumane. Really, what happened if they just did, I guess the first question from a vegan would be, why do they have to kill them? And so can you start from there and then just kind of go from there? I know it's a tough question.
Well, I mean, they don't have to kill them. It's all about allocation of resources. Billionaires own these companies. They could potentially take care of these birds for the rest of their lives and care for them. What if, you know, people infected with coronavirus were mass exterminated? Like, because we view chickens as disposable, we are having to kill them. But the theory is, you know, you have one chicken who becomes infected with avian flu. If they infect 5 million, you're going to have this plume of virus that is going to spread to other farms and cause millions of other birds to get sick and die. It could potentially also infect the wild bird population. I mean, they get this infection from the wild birds. So some people are saying, you know, you have to kill them all. And so if we're living in that reality where we do have to kill them all, then another method that could be used is a method known as whole house gassing, which is much kinder, Definitely not humane still, but it doesn't involve them suffering and being roasted alive for hours. And that is where they seal up the barns and then pump in carbon dioxide to kill them faster. And this is for a cage system. For if any farm converted to a cage-free system, they could also use high expansion foam filled with carbon dioxide or nitrogen that would cause unconsciousness in 1 to 30 seconds and death within 3 minutes. That would be kind of the best alternative that we have. But, you know,
to
in reality,
the best is ending animal agriculture.
In this
and that's
current
the ultimate answer.
Level of enlightenment that we're at right now, that would be like the best option. But then, you know, in the future, we really have to scale down animal agriculture so that humanity is not, you know, forcing these atrocities on other individuals. So
yeah. So before we wrap up, we do want to, I'm going to give you some time if there's anything else you want to tell us, but we do want to emphasize how people can take action and then how to contact you. So as far as taking action, of course, they can visit DXE as well as ourhonor.org. So DXE, which most people don't realize, you have to spell out the entire name, and it's .com. So
well, there is a short link. Let me
there is. Great.
And you can go to dxe.io/Glenn Taylor, and you can sign the petition asking Glenn Taylor to donate his taxpayer subsidies to public health charities and animal sanctuaries. So
let me just jump in and tell you that that's great, because what we do, and want the audience to know this as well, is at the end of the broadcast, we take all the important links and we pin them to the top of this broadcast. So those links will be available there. Go ahead.
But of course, my organization, we are having a discussion tonight, ourhonor.org. You can go to zoom.ourhonor.org at 5 p.m. Pacific time tonight. And we'll be talking to vets who have faced backlash and retaliation for voicing ethical concerns and trying to change systems. And that should be a really interesting discussion. We have a discussion every Saturday, the last Saturday of every month at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So join us and subscribe to our newsletter. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our Honor Vets is our handle on all of those. And see what we're up to. We're going to try to make a lot of change in the veterinary industry, because the veterinary industry is the pillar holding up animal ag. And if we topple that pillar, we'll be able to end animal agriculture.
Now, I have one last question that you just launched in me, and I must ask it before we go. And this is not related to the subject, but related to veterinarians. Have you found that the system of how veterinarians are employed has changed to be more corporations taking over smaller veterinarian concerns as the vets age, buying them up, and then the whole system changes? Because the reason I'm asking this is I have usually around 7 animals that in my care that I'm taking care of. And I've noticed over the years how there's more with certain veterinary offices, there's a bit of not just a bit, there's a lot of upselling. And I just wondered what your take on that is, if you're willing to comment on it.
So, yeah, it's really unfortunate. All these private practices are being bought up by large corporations. I would push back on the idea that vets are upselling. Like, we have enough to do. We do not need to sell unnecessary things to animals. I know in my shelter, my animals and we try to do everything as low cost as possible, but making sure that the animals get the care that they need. And our animals in our shelters ended up getting a lot better care than most animals in private people's homes. People are under the impression that vets are upselling, but really they're trying to provide the care that they need, and trying to offer the best care, just like you would want for your human family member. We're trying to provide that to animals.
Right. And because people have insurance, but I think that's the issue with, but if an animal is older, you can't get insurance. That's the thing. If they don't, and if you rescue older animals, you can't get insurance. So it is a difficult problem. By that, I meant that I found some vets to say, well, you could do this or you could do this, but rather than starting here, they're like, let's do chest on everything, as opposed to moving. And I have found that personally with some, I'm going to say, but I would say, of course, there are millions and all the vets, I know hundreds of vets probably over the years, maybe not hundreds, but many that are excellent. But I did notice corporations taking over, and when you're on the phone, you can buy this and you can buy that. There is some of that on there. I mean, I have heard it myself. So that's what I was referring to, not veterinarians like yourself. So I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but the problem with corporations is, it's usually the CEOs at the top who make all the money.
Exactly.
And then meanwhile, the technicians aren't making anything. And then they exploit new graduate veterinarians who have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and who are working their tails off trying to help all these animals. And it's ultimately the people at the top who get all the profits, and the caretakers of animals are forced to pay a lot more. So
if they
it's an
can, and
unfortunate
that's the
system.
thing. The animals may not get the
Yeah.
care they need, and it isn't the veterinarians. That's my point. It's the overtaking of corporations of these smaller concerns, and I think a lot of it happens because veterinarian does. In the old days, the son would become the veterinarian or the daughter, and it would go down in generations. But now people retire and they sell their businesses, so it's inevitable. But it's probably something that could be addressed.
Yeah, I mean, and the problem with that whole generational thing is it is historically white profession, and we're not allowing diverse perspectives and people from diverse backgrounds into our profession. It's a huge problem. So yeah, those sons and daughters of veterinarians do get these practices and get all this wealth. Meanwhile, you have BIPOC people who are entering the profession with a lot of debt, unable to purchase their own practice, and then are being taken advantage of by these large corporations.
Absolutely. And that's the point I wanted to bring up, that they were being taken advantage of in the corporations, those mean old corporations. But it does seem like they do come in and mess things up a lot for us, doesn't it?
Yeah, as corporations do.
Well, Crystal, it's been wonderful talking to you. So insightful. And like I said, I would love to have you on again with perhaps some of your colleagues to really dig down about your organization and issues like this that you can share, like perhaps between the patients and the veterinarians, we can get some resolution of some of these issues.
Yeah, I think we need to have more conversations about what's going on in the veterinary industry so that regular people understand it and can help support us. Like, we need, Our Honor needs activists and people to help us achieve our goals. It's not just veterinarians and animal professionals. Everybody who cares about animals and is interested in these topics, come join us and help us out. We could use all the help we can get.
Sounds good. And everyone, please share this out. As I said, the links that Crystal is talking about will be right at the top immediately after the broadcast. So please share up this broadcast and click those links and take action. Crystal, thanks for being here. Any last words for our audience?
No, thanks. Go to ourhonor.org and help us out. And join us tonight at 5 p.m. for our chat, zoom.ourhonor.org.
Absolutely.
5 p.m. Pacific.
I'm going to try my best to be there. I didn't know about it before, but I'm sure going to try my best. Everyone, it sounds like a great opportunity to learn a lot. So go if you can. Catch you later and see you next week.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.